Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1679A, and today's date is October 2nd, 2018, and the title of the episode is, Like Clockwork, Why is the Fed Subject of So Many Conspiracy Theories? Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it's starting to seem like the mainstream media, the Fed, and we heard from Lagarde yesterday about the IMF and how people should not be self-sufficient, resist what is happening right now, resist self-sufficiency. And we can see coming out of the mainstream media right now, they're starting to link conspiracy theories up with the Fed. And we're going to be discussing that in just a bit. But first, what I wanted to look at right now is how the economic situation is deteriorating very, very quickly. And remember, this is not because of Trump. This is not because of the Patriots. This is a central banking system. We've been following this for quite a while. We've been watching the entire economic system break down one piece at a time. We know that they built up this illusion to make us believe that everything was so great. And then they thought they were going to have their person in office. They were going to bring us to war. And they'd be able to cover it up and start it over someplace else once again like they've done in the past. What's happening right now is they're losing control. They're losing the narrative. And they're trying to figure out a way to explain all of this and why the entire system is starting to fall apart. Of course, when Trump mentioned tariffs and, tax deals and things like that, they thought they were going to use that. Instead, Trump and the Patriots, they turned it all around. And they used their manipulation against them, and they couldn't do anything about it. But when we look at the economy, and we've been looking at retail sales, we've been looking at what has been going on with unemployment for a very long time. These numbers are manipulated. But when we look at like car sales or those people that are going to college tuition, housing sales, real estate sales, and things like that, we notice there's major problems. Now, a couple weeks ago, we mentioned that car sales are not going to do well in September, and I believe this was a report from Edmunds. Well, here we are in October, and when we go back to September, everything that we talked about where car sales were going to plummet, well, that's exactly what happened. Ford posted an 11% drop, missing analyst estimates of a 9.1% gain. The F-Series pickup line ended a 16-month streak of sales gains. Mustang sales were down by 1.3%. Nissan posted a 12.2% drop in September. Toyota was down 10.4%. Volkswagen was down 4.8%. GM total sales were down 11%. And car sales for Ford, they fell 25.7%. And what happened was a lot of these automobile manufacturers, they rescinded the incentives and they weren't giving as many incentives as they were in the past. And you can see without the incentives, people are not going out and purchasing cars. Now, remember, people don't pay cash for cars. Most of the people finance or most of the people lease today. And we can see without the incentives, they just can't do it. So what we're seeing is the continual breakdown of the economic system. Now, what else is very interesting is that according to a new report, a record number, or 83% of U.S. listed IPOs over the first 3 quarters of 2018 were companies that lost money in the 12-month prior to their going public. Now, why is this interesting? Why is this important? Because this is the highest proportion on record dating back to 1980. Not only that, but investors who have been buying these money-losing companies have been rewarded. Stocks of companies that lose and list in the United States this year are up on an average of 36% from the IPO price. The actual outperformed the return for IPO stocks that are posting positive earnings, which came in at 32%. I mean, a great example for all this is SurveyMonkey and their IPO, which was up more than 40% last week, despite the fact that it hasn't ever posted a profitable year and lost $24 million in 2017. Something is wrong with the market. And we saw this back in 2000. And we're almost at the same level as 2000. And we know what happened during that period of time. It was the dot-com bubble. So we have real estate reaching all-time highs with those bubbles. We have the automobile manufacturers, which they were channel stuffing into lots to drive up manufacturing sales, because you have to remember how it works. It's not when you sell a car, it's when you deliver it to the dealership. And if you channel stuff and you pack the dealerships with automobiles, it looks like you're selling a lot of cars. It looks like you're producing a lot of cars. And now it's all coming to an end. We see the real estate market, well, they're reaching all-time highs and the bubbles are popping. So when we start to look around, we can see that things are starting to fall apart. And they're going to fall apart at an accelerated rate. And it's not just here in this country. It is around the world. And we can see that most of the countries out there, they're getting nervous, they're getting afraid, and they're going to start to panic. And this is why Russia has been out there saying, listen, each country should use their national currency. Why do they need to use their national currency? Because eventually what's going to happen is the dollar will implode. Remember, the dollar has been losing its value over time. I mean, it's lost about 96, 97% of its value. The central banks have been running up debt like there's no tomorrow. And of course, they're blaming it on everyone else. But that's their system. That's how it's designed. It's to put everyone to debt so they can control them and they can buy up their assets on penny on the dollar. Now, what we're seeing here is that the IMF, the BIS, the Fed, they're all nervous. Now, remember, there are certain players within each one of these organizations. Here in the United States, with Powell, I believe he's working with Trump. But we see that nations, they are starting to realize what is going on, and they are dropping their treasury bonds. They're removing their dollars from reserves. And we see Putin is out there, and he supports weaning the country's financial sector off the U.S. dollar. Now, of course, yes, they are being sanctioned, but they realize they need to be completely separate and apart from the dollar. This is why China and Russia have been trading using their own currencies. This is why they created their own payment system. This is why they have their own trading system. And many other countries are following suit. The African nations are saying, why do we need to use the dollar if most of our trade is with the Chinese? It makes no sense. We should be using the yuan instead. And remember what's happening out in the Middle East. As everything starts to break down there and the deep state loses its grip, all those countries that are selling their oil using the dollar will no longer need to do this. And this is exactly what we see happening right now. The people are taking back control, and eventually what's going to happen, just like prior to invading these countries and replacing each one of the governments to make sure that they use the dollar, they were ready to use another type of currency. Some gold, some their own currency. They were going to sell their oil not using the dollar, and the deep state couldn't have this. The central bankers could not have this. And now you see it all falling apart. Now, out of certain publications, this one is from Bloomberg, they're writing about conspiracy theories and the Fed. And it's, why is the Federal Reserve the subject of so many conspiracy theories? Now, what they're doing here is they're doing what they always do. It's like clockwork. They're building up their stories about conspiracy theorists and the Federal Reserve, because this is next on the list. This is the main goal of all of this. Yes, we're going to need to bring down certain individuals. Yes, certain people are going to be thrown into jail. But if you don't go to the source and you get rid of their funding, you get rid of the problem, new people will just take their place. This is what normally happens. And eventually what you need to do is go after the central bank. And this is why they're starting to run these stories now. Because already Trump is out there contradicting the Fed, even though he's in line with Powell. But the rest of the Fed individuals, the IMF individuals, the BIS individuals, they're not on the same side. They like their central banking system, and they don't want it dismantled. But what we're seeing here is that they realize what's coming next, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to make everyone believe that it's one gigantic conspiracy, that the Fed doesn't work in the best interest of the people. The Fed is not doing a great job keeping the economy running. The Fed is just a place where they create funds and they let the governments borrow, and that's it. And they do a great job managing the economy. And anything else is a conspiracy theory. This is what they want everyone to believe. Just like they've been telling us, oh, there's nothing wrong with the Clinton email scandal. There's nothing wrong with the Uranium One deal. There's nothing wrong with McCabe, FISA, and the rest. And we come to find out that, yeah, they've been hiding all of this. When you're in control, you can make anything seem the way you want it to seem. You can hide everything. You have control of the mainstream media. They'll just publish what they want to publish. Everything else stays out of the corporate media. Nobody sees it. And what's happening here is with Trump, with his Twitter, with Q, with the alternative media, they're losing control of the narrative. And they need to protect all their assets. So what they're doing right now is they are projecting into the future because they realize eventually people are going to start to tune in and start to question what the Fed is doing. Now, in the past, we had individuals question the Fed, and it has gone nowhere. And I think in the future, we're going to see Trump, the Patriots, question the Fed. And this is why I believe Andrew Jackson is hanging on the wall, because Andrew Jackson, he campaigned on getting rid of the central bank. And I believe the ultimate goal here is for Trump and the Patriots to get rid of the central bank. And I think this is where we're headed. And I believe this is why the mainstream media, they're already starting to push out the notion that when you hear these people talk about the Fed, it's just one big conspiracy and it's just crazy, so don't listen to it. But we know better. We've been looking at this, we've been researching it, and we understand what is happening here. And we know to get out of this system, we need to bring it down. And this is where all of this is headed. And we can see the IMF already with their calls, with Lagarde out there saying, listen, you need to resist, you need to resist. You could see the panic in what they're saying. And they're very nervous and afraid that their entire system is going to be removed, which it is in the end. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.